you. And I just wanted to say all the questions that were developed tonight, other than those that the audiences are developing, were done in collaborative spirit with the AAUW, trying to be reflective of the resiliency plan that we know that the community passed recently, so that we are trying to carry the voice of those issues that we know that the community cares about. So as Janice said, I'm Ronnie Muth, and I'm the president of the League of Women Voters, and it's my pleasure to help moderate this forum tonight. And I really want to call out the difference between a forum and a debate. In a forum, candidates respond to questions. Each person will be given the very same question. They have been given the questions in advance. Now, some people say, why do they have the questions? Because this isn't a quiz. We're not just in thoughtful responses to each of the questions that have been asked. So we're not trying to trip anybody up, and they may have notes in front of them. That's perfectly acceptable, because what we really want to do is get to the heart of the issues that we as Venetians care about. And so that's the forum that's here. Because it's a forum, not a debate, it means that they don't respond to one another. They don't argue with one another. They don't positively or negatively respond to one another. It is strictly between them and you, their constituents. So I want you to know that that is what distinguishes the difference between a forum and a debate. We could have chosen to do debate, but that wasn't what we were looking for. And so that's why we did what we did. I want you to know that all verified candidates are present tonight. So these are the 4 candidates that are on the ballot for city council. Now, what you might notice is, so where are the mayoral candidates? And I'm sorry that that didn't work out. One of the 2 candidates was unable to attend, and we had already, by the time he responded, we were already way down the road, and we had the venue picked and everybody confirmed, and we were unable to change the date. It is my hope that on the other 2 forums that they've attended where the mayoral candidates who were present, you had an opportunity to hear from both Mayor Steve Young as well as Kevin Kirby. But we are not going to be able to do that, nor are we going to have a second forum. So I know that was a question that was posed to us earlier. So the rules, how this worked, we did a blind drawing, and the first person whose name was drawn was Christina. So she'll begin with the opening, and then they will follow this pattern. So Lionel will come second, then we'll see Franz, and then Trevor. Trevor is going to be the first with the closing remarks. What we tried to do was to balance 2 answers, each thing, the first time. Some people perceive that as a benefit, others don't. They would rather be at the end, but no matter, we tried to balance it as fairly as we could. So when we begin the questioning, Lionel will have the first question, and then we'll go in that rotation, just to help you to feel like you're not at a tennis match. You don't have to be wondering who's next. Just follow the line, and that's where they'll all be. They will be given 2 minutes for their opening statement. We will be asking them 10 prepared questions. They have a minute to respond. I know it's not enough time. We could probably give them 5 minutes if it's not enough time. But that is part of the thinking around giving them the questions in advance, so that they had an opportunity to think through their response and to be succinct in their responses. We do have timekeepers. Shannon, if you wouldn't mind holding up the signs. They are given a 30-second warning, and they're given a 10-second warning. At the 10-second mark, we ask them to wrap up their thoughts. We don't want you to continue on so that we have to stop the stream, but that's the purpose of giving you the yellow card. That means just finish whatever your last thought is. 3 of the questions are multi-part questions. Now, we argued amongst ourselves about whether to do multi-part questions, but we felt that the questions were so tightly linked that we chose to do some questions that are longer. And so we have allotted 90 seconds for 3 of the questions, longer with which to respond. After we've done all 10 of our questions that have been posed by the audience, we have 2 people, somebody from the League of Women Voters and somebody from AAUW, who are going through those questions. We're looking for redundancy. You may have asked a question that's already been posed. There may be 3 or 4 questions that are essentially the same topic, and sometimes they'll blend those together to make those a single question. We do eliminate questions that are pointedly attached to any one person, because all 4 of them have to respond to every question. So if it's something that we want to know what X thinks, that this won't be the forum to do that, or the question will be modified to say questions will be asked in that way. I think that's everything in terms of preparation. We ask that you hold applause. Of course, no booing. We know that we're a civilized audience here. The audience is, your method of participating is simply by being here. And let me begin by saying thank you for being here, because this shows you to being an informed citizen. And that is incredibly important. And I think if you look around you, you see a lot of interest, and we really appreciate that you've taken the time to be here. I would also be remiss if I didn't thank each one of them, because it takes courage to do this. You know, a lot of people will take pot shots at them. A lot of people have opinions about what should and shouldn't be. But these folks are here because they're here because they're informed and they have a vision for our city. And we're going to listen to what that is, and that'll help you better make your choices. Ultimately, you have to pick 2 of the 4 of them. And you have to think about how they will interface with the mayor, because in our city, the mayor is a member of the city council, not differentiated other than I don't want to diminish the job because it's important. I don't get paid. They don't really have anything to do. Clearly not the case. But the mayor is part of that group. And so the goal is to see, maybe in your mind, you want to have folks that don't all have the same opinion. Maybe you do. That's your choice. And that's what makes you an informed voter. But that is part of our purpose tonight, is to give them a chance to respond to each of the same questions, so you hear what their thoughts and their views are. Okay, with nothing else here, I think that we're going to go through and we'll start the questions. There is one more thing. Sorry, this is something we're required to say, so I'm just going to read it. The recording of this forum will be posted on the League of Women Voters of Solano County YouTube. It's also available on our website. The forum cannot be excerpted in any way. If anybody is using the video, they must use it in its entirety, and they have to gather permission through the League of Women Voters. That prevents people from pulling out pieces and then using it in any kind of advertising format. Okay, so with that, we're going to begin our questions for this evening. The very first question is one of those multi-part thoughts, the opening remarks. I'm just moving right along. This is how you keep the pace with these things. You keep moving.
Are you as nervous as we are?
So I'm not running for anything. All right, Christina, I apologize. Thank you, Lionel, for keeping me on track. So Christina has the first opening remark, and I'm going to ask her to begin. She has 2 minutes.
Let me just check. Is that working? Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. I will tell you the one thing I have not gotten good at so far is timing these. So I'm going to tell you that that's why I have notes. And if I occasionally look down, that's why. So I use 10 seconds and about 2 minutes to say that. So my name is Christina Gilpin Hayes. I'm running for Benicia City Council, and I'm glad you're here. And I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this, and for all of you guys to be here. This is a huge opportunity for you to get to know the candidates who are going to be your next city leaders. My background is I have about a 30-year background in law and finance. I was a corporate paralegal for many years, moved into a leadership position, moved into financial services for a few years, and now I'm back at a law firm managing a team doing legal technology software. I have many years being active in community organizing. I'm the founder of the Benicia LGBTQIA network, and we host monthly events for our allies, which is a really great opportunity for you to come out and be an ally if you're interested in that. So there's lots of events you can come to. My education, I have a bachelor's degree in organizational behavior and business communication. I'm running to bring a fresh perspective and a new voice to council, and really just unpack things and find creative ways to address our budget issues, also bring in new development that fits with Benicia's charm and community, and also really to engage the community and do outreach to make sure that people know what's going on in the community, know what's happening, and that we're really engaging them, because I do believe that communities are empowered when they are educated of what's happening. Even if you don't agree with some of us, at least you know where we stand, and you will always know where I stand. So I'm Christina. I would love your vote. And ChristinaForBenicia.com is my contact information. Thank you.
All right. Well, good evening. Thank you to the League for hosting again, and thank you for everyone coming out and folks tuning in at home. Thank you. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Lionel Largo Spada, and I'm running for Benicia City Council because I believe our city deserves a voice that will bring a fresh and unique perspective to the community. Even though I have served on the Benicia City Council from 2018 to 2022, I'm proud to say that I'm not the typical candidate. I'm the outlier in this race. And that's exactly why, for me, this ensures that your council, this next council, remains diverse, not just in our backgrounds, but in our ideas. And I hope you agree with me that that matters. Benicia is a proud and thriving community, but we face challenges that requires different thinking when it comes to managing our finances and protecting the quality of life in our community. If I'm someone who will respectfully question business as usual and work to find ways to keep our city strong without endlessly burdening you with more taxes, I'll advocate for smarter spending, economic growth, and policies that represent everyone in this community, especially those who feel heard. I'm not here to tell you what to think tonight, but I hope you will consider what's best for Benicia. And I think it's a council that represents as many people as possible. So for the undecided voters here and those tuning in at home, I look forward to the opportunity to earning your support tonight and your vote for Lionel. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Franz Rosenthal, and I would like to thank everyone who attended and as well for the League of Women Voters for hosting this. It's been a wonderful experience. This is my first time running for any kind of public office. It's been a wonderful experience. This is exactly voter engagement, being active in the community, being worried about the future, and really engaging and using your vote as the tool that we have in our democratic process. My background is I have a bachelor's in engineering. I've been an engineer for quite a while. I also earned my MBA. I'm used to running large projects, and the reason I'm running for city council is because I feel that we are at a point in the city that it's an inflection point, and this can go either way. And I think we need a little. I can offer some help, helping us get back on the right path to close our budget deficit, increase our revenues, and still maintain the services that we're all used to in this city. My wife and I have been here since 2018. We moved here, fell in love, and really love Benicia, love the people of Benicia, love everything that Benicia has to offer. It's a wonderful place to live, to raise children, to retire in, and we really would hate to see that disappear without a fight. And I think that's why we're all engaged. That's why we're all here. I have perspectives. Being able to run large projects, I understand expenses and revenues. I'm not going to bore you with details, but the city is not a business yet. We have revenues and expenses, and it seems like here recently, near the twain shall meet, and we're getting farther and farther away. And so all the other wonderful, shiny things that we all want for the city will not be possible if we don't lay a solid groundwork on which to build the city and maintain it the way it is. I'd like to see my children grow up here. I'd like to see their children grow up here. I think it's a wonderful place. And so thank you all very much for coming out. We certainly appreciate it. My name is Franz Rosenthal, and I'm running for city council. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Trevor Masensky. I'm going to start by just acknowledging 3 of my other council members that are here. We have our mayor, Steve. If you don't know him, he's incognito. He's probably the tallest guy in the room. Terry sitting right to his right is our vice mayor, and Harry, I believe, is sitting right behind him. Yeah. So thank you, everybody, for coming out this evening. My name is Trevor Masensky, and I'm currently serving you on the Benicia City Council. I'm a lifelong Californian. I've been born and raised in this state, and I've lived in our town now for, Nash, you are now 11, so, that's how old he is, and that's how long we've been here. I'd like to just start by saying my professional passion is what led me into politics. I first started by getting an undergrad degree at University of California, Davis in environmental analysis and policy and planning. I have a master's degree from Johns Hopkins University, so I taught for, 6 or 7 years after school. But that led me to a career in environmental planning, and where I basically help communities all across California deal with some of our state's largest policy and development challenges. So I have the good fortune of having my day job be very, very close to my night job, is what I call it, and supporting you on the city council. With that being said, the reason I'm running is because my wife Kim and I have raised our 3 kids here, and we want this community to be amazing for a long time to come. And so because of that, I put in a lot of extra hours and nights and weekends, not only coaching and participating in community activities. I think I've coached every sport in town with the exception of soccer. That's the shout out to Terry. The idea is that I do this because I care passionately about our community. So over the last 4 years, we've made some very tough decisions. And we put together a plan to try to course correct our community and put us in a better position. And I look forward to serving you and implementing that plan. And I look forward to any questions you have here this evening. Thank you to the
Thank you, Trevor. We're ready with our first question. This first question will be 90 seconds, as most of the questions are 60, but this is that one of those multi-part ones. It says, Benicia, tell us the city is in a precarious financial situation and more revenue is needed to sustain current services. What do you think is the best way to put the city on stable financial footing?
Thank you for the question. And friends, I believe that Benicia is a prosperous and thriving community. As a matter of fact, when you look at property taxes and sales taxes over the last 10 years, our revenue has actually grown over 78% over that stretch. Right now, our budget stands at a robust $58 million for a community of 26,000 and change. My top priority, if elected to council, will be to break that cycle of budget deficits through long-term fiscal discipline without relying on endlessly taxing the most vulnerable population in our town. And that's those on fixed incomes. I propose that we start each budget cycle from scratch. Zero-based budget, which means we are going to justify every expense that the city has before it to ensure that it is based on current needs. After setting that baseline, we'll use what we call priority-based budgeting to ensure every expenditure maps to the priorities that this community set when they were out responding to the surveys when we had Measure B and A on the ballot. We also need to diversify our revenue stream so we're not relying on the same source of income. And that's you and your money. We have to grow our local economy and we have to be extraordinarily responsible with the funds we have available to us. I think these strategies will keep Benicia financially healthy and ensure that we no longer pass this burden onto the residents of our great community. Thank you.
Thank you, Lionel. So the precarious financial situation that we find ourselves in, I believe that there are two components to the solution. One is a short-term and one is a long-term solution. The short-term solution, which is already on the ballots, is to raise the revenue by increasing the taxes, such as with the measures that are currently under consideration. I feel that passing these measures is necessary to address the immediate needs of our current situation. However, this is not the long-term solution. We already do not have enough personnel or funding to properly maintain our parks, for example, let alone to improve them. The long-term solution is to increase revenue by increasing our sales tax revenue. If you look at other cities in California of about our same size, our sales tax revenue is, our share of sales tax revenue is much less than their share of their total revenue. Our largest revenue source of revenue are property taxes. And I think that in order to address the gap, we need to increase our taxes as we're doing now, cut our costs as we're doing. However, the long-term solution is we need to increase our revenues. Once we have enough money to fund all of the programs and all of our basic services, the basic foundation of this great city, then we can focus on growing in all of the niceties that we'd all like. Thank you.
So I'm going to talk to you about a three-pronged approach. The first is kind of cost reduction. So over the last 4 years, we've changed kind of how the fiscal policies have been managed within the city. Step one is we actually instituted a new financial management system, which basically rebuilt our entire finance department. And it was expensive, but it's put us on the right track. Step two is we've gone through a number of departmental consolidations, including our Parks and Community Services and our library department here. As part of that, we've seen a number of staff savings. In total, we've cut about $3 million. So we've cut approximately 20 staffing positions, which equates to about $1.1 million operationally in our budget. So we're already taking strides and we continue to have to. Over the next 5 years, we're going to have, over the next 10 years, we're going to have to identify at least 5 additional positions if our revenues don't continue to increase, that we're going to have to reduce. Some of that will happen through attrition, others will have to be strategic cuts. So as part of the reduction, we're already in the process of a financial plan to make sure that we are seeing a better improvement. Oh, we gotta go fast here. Okay, so the other two prongs are gonna be economic development. We need to encourage tourism as well as investment within businesses to make sure that it's easy to run, operate, and expand a business in our community. The last thing we want to hit on is actually housing. As Franz and others have mentioned, property taxes are the primary source of revenue for our community, and it hasn't grown in over 20 years. So if your primary source of revenue has not increased, but your services have continued to escalate over time, it's going to be a very challenging budget.
Thank you.
So the tax measures that were passed in March and the ones that are on the upcoming ballot are just a starting point. They're not a solution for the long-time financial situation that we're in right now. And the long-term goal is to increase development and increase tax revenue, not just on the backs of residents, but actually bringing in more development at the business level and the residential development. But what that means is we need to be intentional about the type of development that we're doing. I think most of us moved to Benicia or grew up in Benicia and love the small town charm and love the type of community that it is. And we need to make sure that if we're doing development, we're focusing on development that maintains that community mind, that maintains that charm. And my opinion is the time to put Benicia on the right path is right now. Wow, that's fast. So some of the things that I've heard is that we should just go bankrupt and start over. And why didn't the city leaders know this 10 years ago? And the answer is that some people did, and I don't want to blame that any one leader or any one council 5, 10, 20 years ago, because it's just not a productive use of time. But what I do want to say is we can't just go bankrupt and start over. That completely changes the type of community that we are. Anyway, I'm in favor of the tax measures coming up in the ballot, but that's not the end of it. We have to create community growth and development to actually increase the overall finance and revenue that we're creating. Told you I wasn't good at that time.
Thank you, Christina. Would you pass that to Franz? Thank you. The second question this evening, and this one is back to the 60 seconds. What are Benicia's greatest assets or strengths? And how do you plan on building those assets in the future?
Thank you. So Benicia is a solid community with lots of charm and appeal. It's a wonderful place to raise a family as well as to retire. It's small enough to have small town appeal, but large enough to provide a variety of services and amenities. To maintain this foundation, we must focus on what I see as the three main pillars of stability: safety, schools, and lifestyle. By lifestyle, I mean parks, amenities, nice roads to live on, to drive on, nice places to live, and enough housing for anyone who would like to move to Benicia. This will only be possible through a concerted effort of planning and fiscal responsibility. So once we establish our base and we have the revenue necessary in order to maintain the services to which we're used to, in order to attract new families, in order to retain the families that are here, in order to keep them, then we can start building and start thinking about new projects. But in the meantime, our basic tenet is to build on our foundation. Thank you.
So Benicia's greatest assets are our downtown, our historic charm, our arts community, and a sense of place in which every Benician holds true to their heart. You can walk downtown and everyone has a tendency to say hi to you, ask you how your day is going, help you out. And I think that being a Venetian brings something true to everybody. But the reality is that it is a unique community amongst the Bay Area. This is what makes our community great and strong. To pivot and utilize those assets to create more economic investment comes in two ways. The first way is making sure that we are streamlining our development process within downtown to allow new restaurants and businesses to open so that our streets become even more active and lively. The second is to try to facilitate housing in our downtown so that there is more people that can walk and enjoy the great facilities in which our community has made possible. And lastly, the idea is that we want to make sure that we have a community which allows our citizens to age in place so that people have a place to go and they don't have to stay in their 4-bedroom house. The idea is we want Venetians to stay in Benicia, not have to move.
know if you want the question repeated.
No, we're good.
Okay, good.
Thank you. So in my opinion, Benicia's greatest assets are Venetians. My wife and I moved here a few years ago, and that is absolutely the one thing that we loved the most, is that the just engagement in the community that we've seen here since the day we got here. I think that that gives us an edge on creating opportunity here and really engaging diverse and different viewpoints on how we grow. From an economic standpoint, in my opinion, the biggest asset that we have is the waterfront combined with Venetian's charm. We need to lean into those assets and really to make sure that Benicia becomes a destination for a weekend, for travel, and not just for a few hours. And for maybe you come to Oktoberfest, but then you leave right afterwards. We need to make sure that we're creating a tourist destination and really leaning into the waterfront community and downtown's charm to make sure people stay, not just for a couple of hours.
Should have had more coffee because I'm gonna have to pick up the cadence here to get through this. So I love this question because I love Benicia, and her strengths are its natural beauty, its rich history, its strong civic engagement, and our strategic location. To build on these assets, I would support park and rec improvements while advocating for sustainable housing solutions to protect our community at the same time. I will also work to protect our historic sites while promoting cultural tourism, collaborating with local organizations to host events that will boost the local economy. I believe that strengthening the partnerships with our community groups and fostering civic engagement is the key to a thriving Benicia. And finally, I'm committed to supporting small businesses, revitalizing the downtown, and ensuring that Benicia remains a safe, family-friendly community. Thank you.
So
I
we
think it's my
pass
turn,
to
right?
Trevor's
Yeah.
turn to go first. Okay,
He told me to remind you to say the question.
yeah, I'm gonna say, I'm just turning on mine. That's all I'm gonna do, because they tend to give you feedback. Okay, so question number 3. So now what do you see as the challenges and opportunities for economic development? And what is your vision for growing the tax base?
So our biggest challenge historically as a community is that the perception from the outside development communities, it's been historically very challenging to develop here. And part of that is because of our policies and our codes, which are somewhat archaic. Our general plan is over 20-something years old, and it hasn't positioned us well to be a participant in today's economy. The opportunities, however, still exist in the fact that we are an amazing, charming downtown, in which we've actually been working pretty hard over the last 4 years to position ourselves to be approachable by the market. We've revitalized and updated our zoning code in downtown. We've revitalized and updated our height limit in downtown to try to entice mixed-use restaurant and retail. We've put together revitalization plans for specific parts of the community. Now, I think our biggest constraint is our property tax basis. If we don't grow the ability for new housing to allow for new residents, that will not create new property taxes for us. The equation is pretty much that simple. But we also have to identify new sources of tax revenue in addition to sales tax.
That's some future question, not to worry.
So one of the challenges that I see is really bringing the community together to understand that we do need development. I think there's a collection of the community that's absolutely no development. We're a small town, we need our small town charm. And I understand that. That's one of the reasons we moved here. But zero development does not equal continued services that I think most of us all love. We love when the police show up in 3 minutes or the fire department shows up in a couple of minutes. We love the parks, but we can't continue to maintain them under the current finances. We just can't. And so I think one of the challenges really is going to be to bring the community together and make sure that they understand that we do need development, but it needs to be intentional development. Another challenge is competing with neighboring cities that already have this development in place, and they've been working on it for years. For example, Vacaville with their industrial park is very new. So competing with those neighboring cities is going to be difficult, but I think it can be done. And I think we're geographically privileged to in between other cities that we are absolutely going to be successful.
So Benicia faces challenges like limited space and the high cost of doing business here in town, but I'm an optimist, and we have great opportunities thanks to our strategic location, and our historic charm. My vision for growing the tax base focuses on three areas. One, it's attracting small scale advanced manufacturers to the industrial park. This is going to diversify our local economy, bring skilled jobs to town. We are also going to simplify the permitting process. We're going to look at reducing fees where we can for our businesses. And we're going to revitalize the downtown, add to what the greatness that she is already by attracting more visitors and boosting local revenue. And I think we can do this organically. My focus on these priorities is that we grow the tax base in a sustainable way, and we keep Benicia a prosperous community without losing our unique charm. And I think we can do that.
Thank you, Lon. So I see our greatest challenge is that we're in a time where we need to develop, but we need to maintain our charm. And that is very hard to balance those competing priorities. So while the First Street is a wonderful historic place for us to go visit, I do not believe that is where we're going to get our biggest bang for the buck. So compared to other California cities, our share of sales taxes versus selective taxes, both types of sales taxes, is inverted. Most of our tax revenue is coming from selective taxes, and our sales tax to begin with, as I've already said, is a smaller share of our revenue than our property taxes. That should not be the case. So to this end, we require new commercial development. I believe something like a strip mall anchored by a large retail concern will be our best bet for increasing our general sales tax dollars. I know this is unpopular, but we have to balance that against the needs of the city and take a decision to increase the revenue that this city desperately needs in order to maintain our quality of living.
Thank you. Next question. So Christina, I'll start with question number 4. This is also a 90-second question. Revitalizing downtown Benicia and its waterfront, as well as the industrial park, is crucial for economic development. What are your plans to attract new businesses and investments to these specific areas? You have 90 seconds to respond.
Okay. So in my opinion, First Street is absolutely the crown jewel of Benicia. It's one of the reasons we moved here. We accidentally stumbled upon Benicia, drove downtown, and stopped looking at any other community. It was adorable. But First Street only brings in about 7% of our sales tax revenue. And right now, there's not even a lot of vacancies down there to bring in new business. So initially, and what I want to focus on is the industrial park. We need to continue to leverage downtown and for festivals and events and focus on the waterfront. But I think initially, if we're talking about what we need to do first, it's the industrial park. Council should be identifying and collaborating with developers on mixed use properties to bring in not only housing, but develop revenue producing development at the same time and create more walkable communities. Again, I also said this before, our waterfront is amazing and we are not leveraging it at all. We're just not in the same way that other waterfront communities are. Collectively, I think we need to collaborate with council, existing businesses, and really all interested stakeholders to make sure we're brainstorming, to see how we can bring other businesses and festivals and events in that are going to keep people through the weekend. And honestly, not everything's going to work. We need to just kind of throw things against the wall and see what sticks. And I know that's not popular, but it's how this is going to play out. I just don't think we've historically done enough to leverage those the tools that we have here.
Cool. I'm going to dive right into it. So my plan starts by making it easier for businesses to open and grow here in Benicia. And I'll work to continue to streamline the processes, look at where we can reduce fees for our current businesses to expand, to renovate, and to innovate. Our businesses are the key to this success, and we need to unleash that entrepreneurship. For the downtown, we need to focus on a diverse mix of retail, dining, and cultural venues to increase foot traffic. I propose continue to collaborate with local organizations to promote events and festivals that draw visitors and boost the local economy again. And then at the industrial park, we need to continue to work at attracting new industries, particularly, again, small scale advanced manufacturers, the people that make stuff. When you make stuff, we get revenue from that. They bring jobs, they diversify the economy. And I think we can do that by promoting the strategic location of our industrial park. It is unique in that she is located by a port. There is multiple freeway accesses. We're surrounded by airports. So I think with this comprehensive approach that supports both our local businesses and new industries, we can make Benicia a thriving hub of commerce while preserving the unique character of this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Lima. So, as I stated earlier, and I probably shocked a lot of you by saying that I propose something as a strip mall anchored by a large retail concern. The idea is not to locate that on First Street and leave that jewel untouched. But my point with that is that the First Street is wonderful, it attracts tourism, and we will increase our tourist dollars by putting our efforts in there and renovating and allowing the permitting process to be easier, to be reasonable, and to be inviting. It's right now very onerous. People actually sidestep it and don't, for residential concerns and for business concerns, don't even try to do business here in Benicia because we have unfortunately, reputation of being difficult to do business with. So as far as the industrial park, that's exactly somewhere along that line, along Second Street. Rezoning is vital. We do not have a lot of developmentally open space in Benicia. We are running out of land. Rezoning is our choice to better plan our community, have it more integral, and also be able to provide us the foundation that we need in order to continue the services that we're all used to. And the waterfront, I know there was also, well as in the for revitalizing industrial park, we need to relook at those efforts and not replicate what's already been looked at in the past in the early teens and 20s. Thank you.
So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we've been doing for the last 4 years, which is incredibly important because it speaks to the answer to this question. The first thing we did is during COVID, we actually identified a business grant program to try to keep our businesses open so that we wouldn't lose them in downtown. Following that, we actually came up with a business grant incentive program. So where if you had enough employees, we'll help you defer permit fees so that you can actually grow your business in town and pay those fee payments over time. So the city's taking the burden of allowing businesses to expand. We also actually streamlined our permits already by having an online permit counter. We processed 5 times as many permits over the last 4 years as we did in the previous 8 because you don't realize how many requests for bathroom remodels and window replacements that we get on a daily basis. But we also just approved a contract to reopen our planning counter so that our community could have an interface with our planning and building department again, which will help streamline and answer questions for the community that actually wants to grow. Now to the industrial park. If you don't know this, we're the only community within the Bay Area that has a priority development area identified for our industrial park to try to facilitate development underneath Planned Bay Area. As part of that, we got a grant from ABAG and MTC to try to evaluate our zoning. We actually just issued that contract 2 weeks ago or something like that to evaluate how we can better position our industrial park to meet the needs of the future. But the first 2 things that we got to do out there to facilitate businesses is we have to fix our roads. It's the #1 complaint that we get. And we have to include high-speed internet. There's no high-speed internet to over half the industrial park. So we have to have some sort of way that companies can communicate to improve their own business.
The next question is to Lima. Question number 5. What strategies will you use to address affordable housing and the housing shortage in Benicia?
In 60 seconds, right?
In 60
All right.
seconds.
Most of you probably don't know, but there was actually a plan to have I believe it was a $20 billion housing bond on the ballots here in the Bay Area. But after thoughtful consideration, the Association of Bay Area Governments pulled it because they came to the conclusion that the only way to resolve and move past this housing crisis is through public-private partnerships. And so my strategy is to follow their direction. We need to improve how we deal with interested developers by offering incentives for affordable units such as fee reductions and speeding up the permitting process that is proportional to what they will invest in the infrastructure needs that come with new housing. We're not giving anything away for free. We also need to work with these interested developers to encourage mixed use development, and that is going to provide housing solutions for a variety of our residents, including teachers, city employees, your kids, your grandkids. And so I think by fostering collaboration with developers, we can work towards solutions that are going to address our housing crunch here in town. Thank you.
Thank you, Lionel. Sean?
Thank you, Lionel. So one of the strategies, I'm sorry, that we need to follow in order to ensure that affordable housing is actually built is that we need to, in any development, any new concern needs to include affordable housing, and it needs to include a clause that the affordable housing will actually be built, not just planned and land set aside for it. We could streamline the permitting process. We could also consider implementing a well-considered rule-based approval process rather than the discretionary process that we have now. We can still allow input from the community, but having a rule-based process, if the developer brings us a plan and it meets the rules, they will be approved. And then if we streamline the permitting process, we think why do we really have this permitting process? What is it that we want these developers to adhere to? And we tailor it as such and make it affordable and attractive. Thank you.
So over the last few months, we've actually gone through updating our housing element. As part of that, ABAG and MTC gave us growth of about 750 units that we have to incorporate over the next 8 years. And going through that process, we've already rezoned and identified how to accommodate those units within our community. Also, within the last 4 years, we've updated our inclusionary housing ordinance. So it's exactly what Franz was talking about. The ability to require affordable housing be constructed as part of project is already in place. We are not a 4-fee community. We do not do enough development to actually have that make sense over time. I think the addition of housing units within our downtown will come when we have additional corridor redevelopment plans like the Eastern Gateway Plan, which upzoned approximately 5 stories where bottom of the 5th is to allow for an increase in density in housing to take place within our community. And we got that same grant from ABAG to develop and have the ability to affordable housing to meet the community's needs.
Thank you. Christina?
So for this question, I actually want to talk about what affordable housing means. I think we all know that there needs to be affordable housing developed, and I think if you read anything that the city's been doing, we already know that we're working on that. But one of the things that I've heard a lot as I've been talking to neighbors and walking around the community and talking to people is they don't want affordable housing. And unfortunately, I think that there's just a misunderstanding of the difference between affordable housing and low-income housing or housing projects. And I want to make sure that people know that affordable housing means, I have the actual statistics. So the moderate income standard to qualify for affordable housing is 80 to 120% of the area median income. And the area median income here in Benicia is about $124,000 a year. And so in order to comply with the area median income to qualify for the moderate income standard is about $99,000. Our teachers start off at $61,000. We don't have enough affordable housing to allow for our teachers, our young people coming back from college to live here. We just don't.
Thank you. Next question goes to Franz. Question number 6 is also a 90-second question. Question 6, please explain your position on measures F, G, and H and your rationale for your decision. Do you think increased sales tax revenue is needed to finance city obligations and programs? Franz is first.
Thank you. So as I explained in the first question that yes, I do believe that in the short term, this is our short-term solution. I think we need to get behind these measures and increase the immediate need to address that we have of our unbalanced budget. We need to close this gap. I specifically endorsed, well, personally, Measure F because it's being a directed that the city funds that the funds collected through this measure will be directed solely for repairing our streets, which we all know we are in sore need of, and if we do not pass Measure F, we will be forced to search out other forms of financing, which will not be pretty and will not be sustainable in the long run. And G and H is another form that while it will increase our taxes, that when we sell our homes, this tax revenue is important for us, and it closes a temporary gap. While we also think about how we're going to increase our revenue, and once we increase the revenue to the point where we're able to sustain ourselves, then these sorts of tax measures will no longer be necessary. That's where we really need to focus our effort. So in the short term, nobody wants to pay these extra taxes, we all understand that it's necessary for Benicia to be able to continue to operate in the short term.
Sure. So with F, absolutely. I'm actually yes on all of them, so we'll get that out of the gate pretty early. The reason for F is we went through a process of identifying a community budgeting problem, right? Identifying that we're underfunding things, isolating those problems and creating a funding source. We did that with water rates, we did it with sewer rates. We now have the ability to actually isolate funding for roads. That's measure F. It will be a dedicated funding stream specifically to implement our roadway program. If we don't do it, we're going to increase by $20 million. So unfortunately, we won't have an ability to tax our way to try to solve that problem unless we hop on it now. G&H. The reason why G&H are critical in this particular venture of our community is because the type of housing that we've been talking about and the units which have already been approved in our pipeline, we are trying to capitalize on the creation and the sale of new units to facilitate additional revenue to buy us time so that our property tax basis and our sales tax basis can actually catch up. And I'm not going to say it's going to stop there. There's going to have to be a 218 process, which is going to have to be implemented over the next 4 years. A 218 process will help us identify a funding mechanism for maintaining all of our parks and landscapes, because it will require a citywide parcel tax to fund that, because we have 5 districts, none of them have escalators, and because of that, they basically don't cover a fraction of the cost of service. And that's my time. Sorry.
So the first thing I want to say is I want to acknowledge that the entire community is experiencing some tax fatigue. That's one of the things I've heard over, again, out walking the streets. Those hills are brutal, by the way. This city is asking us to contribute more. I understand. I don't necessarily want to pay more taxes either. But I do think that with Measure F specifically, I'll talk about that first. It's a small price to pay to fix the roads, which everybody I think understands that are kind of a mess. And I did the math for an $80 dinner at one of my favorite restaurants, Baxter's. If you haven't gone there, you should go. Your current tax is about $7.30 on that meal. After the tax measure is approved, and I hope that it is, your tax is going to be $7.70. The sales tax measure is not going to change the fact that groceries are still excluded, that those necessities are, that's not changing anything. So I feel like with the amount of roads that need to be covered, if we don't pass this, the backlog of roads is going to get worse and the condition's going to get worse. And I feel like I'm willing to do that. Oh, yikes. So Measure G and H, there's a lot of misinformation about that. I've talked to homeowners who thought that their houses were going to be immediately reassessed. That's not the case if you're curious about that. What I will say is that Measure F will have an immediate impact on the budget. Measure G and H is really to plan for the future. It's not bringing in a ton of revenue for today, but it will help us plan for the future.